The wind whistled low through the valley, carrying with it the scent of sagebrush and rain. The plains stretched endless beneath the dying light, painted gold by the setting sun. And in the heart of that wild, open land stood a small log cabin, its wooden walls scarred by storms, its chimney puffing a thin line of smoke into the violet dusk. Inside that cabin, a single flame flickered in the window. Every evening, without fail, she lit it. Her name was Clara May Hollister, and for 6 long years she had waited. The lantern. The lantern was an old brass thing, dented, soot-blackened, its glass cracked at the edges. But Clara polished it every morning and filled it with clean oil at noon. At sunset, she struck the match, shielding the flame from the wind with a trembling hand, and whispered the same words she had whispered every night since the war began. "Come home, Luke. Please come home." No one in Dry Creek believed he would. The war had ended 2 years ago. The men had returned, some limping, some broken, some buried beneath foreign dirt. But Luke Carver, the cowboy who had once ridden across the valley with a smile as wild as the prairie itself, had not come back. Still, Clara waited. Every evening she placed the lantern in her window, the same window that had once framed his shadow when he rode away. Memories of the last ride. She could still see him that morning. The dawn had been pink and soft, and Luke had been laughing, even as he tightened the cinch on his chestnut horse, Bandit. His hat tipped low, his eyes bright. He looked like freedom itself. "I'll be back before the leaves fall," he had said, brushing a lock of her hair from her cheek. "You keep that light burnin', Clara May. You hear, I'll find it, no matter how dark it gets." She had laughed then, too, because she hadn't believed the war would last. She hadn't believed the things it would take from her. But the leaves had fallen. Then the snow came. Then spring again. And Luke never returned. The years between. The town forgot. The people moved on. Dances at the barn, weddings, new babies, new widows. Clara stayed. She took care of her land, traded eggs for sugar, mended her dresses with rough stitches. Her hair, once golden, had turned to the color of pale wheat. Her hands, once soft, bore the marks of a life lived alone. Sometimes, in the long winters, she thought she heard boots on the porch, a knock at the door. Once, she even opened it, heart pounding, only to find the snow swirling in silence. But she never let the flame die. Neighbors whispered that she was mad, that her mind had gone soft with waiting. But even when her friend Martha Bell came riding out with a preacher to convince her to move into town, Clara only smiled and said quietly, "If he's still out there, he'll need to see the light." The stranger. One late autumn evening, when the sun was already gone and the wind was biting, Clara heard something, hooves. Slow, heavy hooves on the frozen dirt road. Her heart leapt, and she ran to the window. A figure was moving through the mist, a rider wrapped in a dark coat, hat pulled low, horse stumbling from exhaustion. She threw open the door, lantern in hand, her voice trembling. "Luke, Luke, is that you?" The rider didn't answer. He swayed in the saddle, then fell. Clara gasped and ran forward, the lantern swinging wildly. The man was unconscious, his face hidden under a layer of dust and stubble. Not Luke. Too thin, too broken. But wearing a cavalry coat. She dragged him inside with all her strength, laid him near the fire, and peeled back the collar to look at the insignia. 7th Texas Cavalry. Luke's regiment. Her breath caught. "Dear God." The man groaned, his eyes fluttering open. You, the lady with the light," he rasped. Clara nodded, tears already in her eyes. "You knew Luke Carver." The soldier swallowed hard, his voice weak. "I did. Rode with him, till the end. The letter." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, dirt-stained envelope. It was torn, edges burned, but her name was still legible in the faded ink. To Clara May Hollister. Her hands trembled as she took it. The soldier closed his eyes. He said, "If he didn't make it back, I should give this to the lady who keeps the lantern burning." Clara's heart shattered like glass. She fell to her knees beside the fire and opened the letter. "Greater than my dearest Clara May. If you're reading this, I reckon I couldn't keep my promise. The war's a cruel thing, it takes more than it ever gives back. But know this, my love, not a day went by I didn't think of you. Every night, I'd close my eyes and see that lantern shining. It kept me alive longer than I deserved. If I fall, Don't let the light die. Let it burn, just once more, for me. And when you're tired of waiting, blow it out, and I'll come find you in the dark. Yours, always, Luke. Her tears fell hot onto the paper. She clutched it to her chest and rocked back and forth, the lantern still flickering beside her. The soldier slept for 2 days before he left, leaving behind a single line that haunted her long after. He saved us all, ma'am. Took the bullet meant for me. The dream. That night, Clara dreamed of Luke. He stood in the field, under a sky full of stars, smiling just like before. The wind stirred his hair, and he raised a hand toward her. I told you I'd find the light, he said softly. She reached out, but her fingers met only mist. When she woke, the lantern flame had gone out. For the first time in 6 years, she had forgotten to refill it. The storm. 2 days later, a storm rolled over Dry Creek. Lightning split the sky, and thunder cracked the mountains. Clara tried to relight the lantern, but the wind kept snuffing it out. Desperate, she cupped her hands around the flame, whispering through tears. Just one more night, Luke, please. Then, through the roar of the storm, she heard it again, hooves. Not the ghostly kind this time. Real, fast, urgent. A rider burst through the rain, a man cloaked in mud, face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. Clara ran to the porch, soaked to the bone. Who's there? She shouted. The man dismounted, stumbled toward her, and lifted his face. And in the lightning's flash, she saw him. The rain that fell that night did not last, but it left behind something unseen, a whisper of promise that settled into the soil and into the hearts of those who still dared to hope. For the next few days, Luke Carver worked from dawn until dusk. He patched fences, hauled water from the well, and mended the old irrigation lines that had long fallen silent. The earth remained dry, but he spoke of it like an old friend, telling Evelyn how the ground never truly died, it only slept, waiting for someone stubborn enough to wake it. Evelyn found herself listening more than she meant to. Luke didn't talk like other men she'd known. He didn't complain about the heat or curse the wind. He worked with a quiet patience that seemed almost reverent. Sometimes he hummed tunes beneath his breath, old songs, full of longing and miles. Each evening, when the sky turned copper, he'd take his horse, Ash, down to the riverbed, now nothing but cracked mud, and walk its length in silence. She once asked him why. I like hearing what the world isn't saying, he'd replied. She didn't understand it then, but she remembered the words. A town suspicious of miracles. By the end of the week, Cedar Hollow had begun to notice the stranger. The general store's porch became a place of whispered judgment. That drifter's still stayin' at the Turner place, muttered old Benton Reeves, whose dry goods business had suffered more from his sourness than the drought. He's trouble, I tell you, said Clara May, the preacher's wife. Comes out of nowhere, brings rain behind him, ain't natural. Only one man spoke differently, Sheriff Amos Lee, who sat with his boots crossed, squinting against the sun. Folks talk too much, he said quietly. Man swings a hammer and fixes fences, that's more help than half this town's done in a year. But gossip is a kind of drought, too. It dries trust as quick as heat dries water. Evelyn felt the weight of those whispers every time she went to town for flour or nails. She saw the sideways glances, the tight smiles. She pretended not to hear, but they followed her home like dust. That evening, as she fed the chickens, she said quietly, people are talking. Luke, stacking wood near the porch, paused. They always do. It's not fair, she said. You've done more good here in a week than most of them in a year. He gave a half smile. Don't waste breath defending me. I've had worse said by better people. Something in the way he said it, calm but heavy, told her he meant it. The weight of memory. That night, the wind carried a chill. Evelyn woke to the sound of low thunder and found Luke sitting by the barn door, staring out across the fields. The lantern beside him flickered, casting long shadows over his face. He held the harmonica again, but he wasn't playing, just turning it slowly in his hands. You don't sleep much, she said from the doorway. He glanced up. Sleep and I don't get along. Every time I close my eyes, the past starts talking. She stepped closer, wrapping her shawl tighter. You talk about the past like it's a person. He gave a quiet laugh, more breath than sound. Sometimes it feels that way. After a long pause, he said, I used to have a brother. Name was Daniel, younger by 2 years. Smart, reckless, had a laugh that could chase away the worst kind of day. We worked the railroads together. Thought we'd make something of ourselves. Then came the fire. Evelyn waited, the night wind brushing her hair. Wasn't his fault, Luke said softly. The foreman had us hauling dynamite through a canyon line. Heat got too high, caught a spark. Daniel tried to stop it. I pulled him out, but he stopped. After that, I just kept walking. Been walking ever since. She didn't know what to say. So she simply said, "I'm sorry." He nodded, looking out into the darkness. Nothing to be sorry for. We all lose something. Some of us just never find the road back. The lantern light caught in his eyes, not tears, but the shimmer of memory. Evelyn wanted to ask more, but the moment felt too fragile. Instead, she said, "You should play something. The wind could use a song tonight." He smiled faintly and raised the harmonica to his lips. The melody was soft, aching, full of spaces that felt like prayers. Evelyn closed her eyes. For a moment, the farm didn't feel so empty. A lesson in hope. The next morning, the sky was pale gold, the air heavy with that uncertain stillness that comes before change. Luke found Evelyn standing by the field, holding a small cloth bundle. "What's that?" he asked. "Seeds," she said. "My father kept them. Wheat mostly. He used to say a seed doesn't die, it just waits." Luke smiled. Smart man. He planted the last batch before the drought. Nothing grew. My mother says it's foolish to waste what's left. But I can't just let them sit in the dark. She knelt and dug her fingers into the dry earth, pressing a few seeds into the cracks. Dust clung to her skin, but she didn't stop. Luke watched silently, then knelt beside her. "Let me help." Together they planted row after row, tiny gestures of defiance against the barren ground. At one point, Evelyn looked up and said, half laughing, "We're planting hope in dust." Luke nodded. "That's the only place it grows." They worked until the sun dipped low. Sweat streaked their faces, hands raw, but neither wanted to stop. When they finally rose, the field looked no different, still brown, still broken, yet something inside her had shifted. The act itself felt sacred. That evening, as she washed her hands at the pump, her mother spoke softly from the porch. "Your father would have been proud." Evelyn looked up, startled. It was the first time Martha had spoken more than a few words in weeks. Luke, hearing from the barn, smiled quietly to himself. Firelight and laughter. Later that night, Evelyn brought 2 tin cups of coffee to the barn. Luke sat by a small fire, sharpening his old pocketknife. She handed him a cup and sat nearby. "Tell me something," she said. "Why do you keep moving? Don't you ever want to stop somewhere?" He stared into the flames for a long moment. "Once, I thought staying meant safety. But the longer I stayed in one place, the more ghosts caught up. So I figured if I kept moving, they couldn't find me." "Do you still believe that?" He looked at her, eyes reflecting firelight. "Not tonight." The air between them grew soft, filled with the crackle of wood and the scent of dust and smoke. Evelyn laughed suddenly, not forced, but free. "What's funny?" he asked. "You," she said. "You fix fences like a preacher mending souls, talk like a poet, and act like you've got no right to either." Luke chuckled, a rare, warm sound. "Guess I'm all mixed up, then." "Maybe that's not such a bad thing," she said. For a moment, their eyes met, steady, unguarded. Then she looked away, heart beating too fast. Outside, the night deepened. The stars burned bright, and somewhere beyond the hills, thunder rolled faintly again. The first signs. By week's end, the air had changed. The mornings were cool again, the wind carried moisture. The well, once whispering at the bottom, now murmured faintly, fuller than before. Luke noticed small things, the way Evelyn smiled more easily, the way her mother hummed old hymns again while hanging clothes. Even the animals seemed livelier. One evening, Luke walked to the edge of the field they'd planted. A thin green sprout had broken through the dust, fragile, trembling, but alive. He called out, "Evelyn, you'd best come see this." She ran out, hair loose, eyes wide. When she saw the small shoot, she knelt down, covering her mouth with her hands. "It's growing," she whispered. Luke nodded, smiling faintly. "Told you, Earth never forgets." Evelyn looked up at him, tears glistening in her eyes, not from sadness but wonder. "Thank you, Luke." He shook his head. "Don't thank me. I just helped you see what was already there." But deep inside, something stirred in him too, something he thought had died with his brother. A sense of belonging, of redemption. As they stood side by side in the twilight, the horizon glowed with the promise of another storm. It would not come that night, but it was coming, he could feel it. And for the first time in many years, Luke Carver believed that maybe, just maybe, the road ahead was leading him home.